Hola, YouTube. Hey, I just thought I'd do a quick video on this this old PPI 250M. It's a great little amp, but somebody had butt connected the crap out of it, and it was just looking ugly and affecting the value. What I actually do, here's the harness. What I actually do is, it's not really worth keeping because it's not in mint condition. So what I do is I go in and replace the power wires with new oxygen-free copper. This stuff was just electrical wire that they got off the shelf. I also remove the harness connector on the inside and hardwire it out to the outside, and I even put it on a gold barrier strip with a fuse. That way you can terminate and re-terminate. You don't end up with the butt connector problem like you did before. Some people don't like it, but you know, whatever, you're a collector, you're not even going to use your amps anyway. So, but this one I've taken the parts, the screws out of. One quick note about old Orion and PPI amps. A lot of people think that if the screw has a star pattern, like somehow it's more genuine than some other version of the amp, and that's just not true. The truth is that many of these features that are signature things on these old amps are due to just supply and demand. They'll go to a bolt place like Copper State Nut and Bolt that we have here in Arizona, and they'll say, well, this is what we need. We need a number 6x32, which is what this is. And they're like, what's the cheapest one you have? And then they say, like, we have a star one that nobody uses, and they're like, we'll take 100,000 of those. And that's how stuff makes it on the amp a lot of times. Sometimes you'll see caps that are a different color. That's because they ran out of the other color, and whatever, same difference. Sometimes they'll have a higher voltage. Most of the times, I think the factory ones I like on these were 50 volts because the rails only go to, I think, about 35 volts anyway on these low power units. So, but here's a look at the amp guts. And what I'd usually do is, when I have to do service on an amp, I like to open it up and then count the FETs, the devices, to give a kind of an idea of what the actual power is. I'm doing that for my Audio Guts website. You guys can help me work on that. We want to basically dissect every amplifier, every woofer, and get as many specs on it as you can, and then sources for materials and replacement parts and things like that. So, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and replace the power wires, and then I'm going to replace these with just 16 gauge is fine. 16 gauge oxygen-free copper, good copper stuff. We're a hooker dealer now, so we have hooker wire, and that's really good wire. Other than that, oh, real quick, one of the companies that PPI used at the time, get that out of the way. You like that with the diode pack synced? Yeah, that sucks. But I thought this was a B at first, but it's actually a W. Western Powder Coat was the company that did all the powder coating. But if you notice, underneath the mica, they didn't mask it off. So if you do want to refurb these and you want them to last a little bit longer, I mean, rule of thumb is that if it functioned in the field, then it'll function now and don't change it. But a lot of people want to just go in there and really make them nice. You can remove all this mica and the grease, and then use like a Scotch-Brite or something like that to shine it up and kind of polish. You want to get it as even possible to remove the powder coat, and then get down to the metal, and then when you have a nice clean, shiny, whatever, it doesn't matter because you're going to put grease on it anyway. A nice clean surface that goes straight to the metal. Then you put your grease down, and then you put your mica back down, or if you want to just bypass all that, this is not a heat critical amplifier, so if you want to use just Kapton tape, like I think it's 1 mil is the standard by 1 inch or 3/4 inch tape. It's super cheap. You can get it on eBay, but the Kapton tape works really well in this case as well. There's not going to be any issues with thermal and overheating. So, but other than that, this pressure system sucks balls. What you see on Orion is actually they moved to rails, and then as that progressed, now what you see is the standard of one tiny rail per 2 devices, and that's the way. That way it stays balanced because it's going to put even pressure on both pieces. The older Orion ones had the bars, but that was kind of to compact them rather than to make it a larger heat sink, and that's because they're cheap and a lot of other reasons. But just a quick note, I got the power wires on, so I kind of cheated a little bit. I used my wire strippers to strip out to 10 gauge because originally 10 gauge was on there. So I stripped it with the 10 gauge hole, which makes it a little bit smaller, and it keeps me from having to drill out the openings. The downside to doing that is that I have to add a new hole for the second wire, which collectors hate, but I don't care. This is for somebody that just wants an old school amp and some fond memories of high school. So also, real quick, if you forget which one's which hole is which, you can look on the board, and there's actually, on this one on the end, I don't know if you can focus and see that, there's a little tiny trace that you see. That's the remote turn on. So, and also a giveaway on this one, you can see this common trace. That's your common. Those are technically your negatives, but in a lot of the old Orion amps and the PPI amps, is what they'll do is they'll switch polarity on one channel. So that way when you bridge it, it's the positive of one and then the negative of the other channel, when really it's just the two hots, and then you got your common. Okay, another quick note. So we went positive, negative, positive, negative, and what I did was I made the writing on the wire, that is the positive side. And what you also want to remember is that when you're putting it on, you want to make sure that the label is down, because the board actually lays in there upside down, and so that way your wire markings will be right side up. Another quick note I noticed, these are a little dusty. What I do in a lot of these refurbs is I just, like the, you know, turning your pillow over at night, you just flip it over and it's clean, fresh, and new. And that's just a felt ring that it's nothing special. You can make it yourself if you want. Okay. I just finished trimming them and cleaning them up. I even went back. This is not earwax, this is rosin. You want to use a little alcohol, rubbing alcohol, denatured alcohol, really doesn't matter. But you want to go back and scrub. Some people use like a little acid brush. They shorten it so it's real nice and bristly and tough. And then you scrub off the rosin, and then you go by with a paper towel and mop it up. So, but these are all clean. The rosin is actually a little corrosive over time, but it's not the end of the world if there is some. And also, when you do open up an amp and you do see a lot of rosin, you can see where the factory did a lot of rework and things like that and didn't clean up their mess. So that's just a little level of quality if you want to be a nitpicker. So, but I'm going to clean up the extra jizz. Some of the silicone grease that they used would sometimes get hard, or they just use way too much. Sometimes some of these amps, you'll open them up and they just jizzed everywhere, and it's just disgusting. But a lot of this I'll just recycle. You can see on it squirts through the holes, and that's still fine. It's good. You know, I'll reuse it. It will get all over your bench. I've been cleaning it up, but that's just part of working on these old amps. As you can see, my aim is pretty good on that second hole, and I used a Harbor Freight stepper bit. They work great. I also sometimes will put grommets in here so it matches, and I don't know, some people worry about rubbing, but the wire is very tough and you have to take a lot to rub through the insulation, but sometimes I just put them on there just to hold them in place. Okay, I got it back in the sink. One little thing, you want to make sure this little thermistor is probably jizzed. I mean, this amp has hardly any protections, but the ones that it does have, you want it to use it if it needs to, if it gets hot. And then make sure your LEDs are good and set up properly to meet the faceplate, and then just double checking my work. Oh, you also may want to bench test at this point. Just a quick turn on to make sure everything works and that there's nothing shorted. And then when you put on the clamps, then if you have a problem, then you know there's something in there. Okay, I got one panel on and I ran into something else that I thought you should know. I also put tie wraps on the inside. I'll just couple the remote to that one, and then this one is just a pair. And then when I run it out the grommets, that way in case, I don't know, you're holding it by the wires, it won't put any pressure or less pressure on the actual solder joints. So, but I've seen some crazy things, and that's one of them. People just yanking the wires out. Okay, I got the second faceplate on. Some other things you want to be concerned with is when these screws go back into the fitting, sometimes they emit little flakes of aluminum. You want to make sure you get those out of there. You don't want them in there. I've done 2 tie wraps on this one. I did one to couple all of these together, and then you want to make sure this stays out of the way so that the clamps can come down straight on the devices. And there it is, the finished amplifier. Everything works great. We got 8 gauge, which makes no difference because you get this little tiny fuse, but I think the thing is fused at 20 amps. So, but these are nice. Don't forget when using a barrier strip to know what the rating is for the barrier strip. On this one it happens to be 30 amps, so it's fine for this application. I remember there was one little thing inside the Orion Beast amps, also known as the HCCA 2100. There's 2 little fuse holders on each side of the case, and each one should be a 50 amp or 60 amp fuse, but if you look at the rating of the actual fuse holder, is only 30 amps. So don't run into that issue because it can cause you problems. Have fun, stay safe, and look for our Kickstarter project for Mac coming up this week.